Hello all, and welcome back to Promises Kept, the Bible study in which we're taking a look at God's promises found in our Bibles. We're taking a look at 150 of them, and today we are on Promise Kept number 136. And we're going to be in a book of the Bible we have not been in yet. We're in a book of the Bible which is called Zephaniah, and he is one of the minor prophets, which doesn't mean anything other than he didn't write a whole lot. And it's a good thing, honestly, because this book, it's short, but it is a snapshot of what is going to happen in the end of days. So if you want to read a quick book, 3-chapter book, which gives you a very clear explanation of what is going to happen in the end times, go to the book of Zephaniah. I'm spelling it Zephaniah. So that's in your Old Testament, obviously, the book of Zephaniah. So the verses the verse we're going to look at for our promise verse is in the end chapter. It's chapter 3, and it's verse 17. And I'll tell you, just like the book of Zephaniah gives us a very succinct, detailed vision of what's going to happen in the end times, this one verse in the book of Zephaniah will give you a very clear idea of why Israel is looking forward to the Messiah coming. Yes, they missed Jesus, but this one verse sets you up to see why they knew a Messiah was coming and why they were waiting for him. There are verses like this all throughout the prophets in the Old Testament, but this is a very clear one to give you the thought process of what they were thinking about, what they are thinking about as far as the Messiah coming. So let me just read it, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, and you'll see the clarity of it. Now, just so you know, I'm going to read some of the headings of the book of Zephaniah. Maybe I'll read all of them, and you'll just see the progression. There's only a few of them, and you'll see how we end in chapter 3 of Zephaniah, the last chapter. The first heading is the coming judgment of Judah. Now, we know that there was going to be judgment on Judah for the fact that they didn't keep the 10 Commandments as they promised. But interestingly, if you read the first, let me just read the first verses 2 and 3 of it, you're going to see that it's really not talking about the judgment on Judah for them not keeping the Mosaic covenant. It's talking about a much worse time of judgment. So in verse 2 it says, "I will utterly sweep away everything from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. I will sweep away man and beast. I will sweep away the birds of the heavens and the fish of the sea and the rubble with the wicked. I will cut off mankind from the face of the earth, declares the Lord." So right off the bat, you can see that, yeah, it's talking about judgment for Judah, but it's talking about a time in the far, far future where mankind is not going to be doing well because of the judgment of God. The second chapter heading says the day of the Lord is near. So this was Zephaniah. So you're talking about before the time that Judah was taken into captivity. So that's, let's just say, 750 BC. And so it's saying the day of the Lord is near. At least 2,750 years ago. So interestingly, one day is like 1,000 days with the Lord. 1,000 days is like one day. Near, as far as God, because God is speaking these prophecies, near, is very subjective depending on who's saying it. And when God's saying it, near obviously is at least 2,750 years, the day of the Lord, and it still hasn't come yet. Then we have a title that says Judgment on Judah's Enemies. So we know that the nations that have come against Judah, Israel, are going to be judged. This is all, again, in a far future context. And then judgment on Jerusalem and the nations. So again, more judgment on Jerusalem specifically. That's the capital of Judah and the nations. And then the heading says the conversion of the nations. So, good news, conversion of the nations. They're going to come to believe. And then the last heading is Israel's joy and restoration. So, like I said, in just these chapter headings, you can see the progression of what's going to happen in the day of the Lord in the end times. So here's our verse, which gives you the idea why the Jewish people are looking for the Messiah. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love. He will exalt over you with loud singing. So all of these promises of what God is going to do, Messiah is going to do, he's going to be, first of all, in their midst. Physically in their midst. This is again after it's saying the conversion of the nations and then Israel's joy and restoration. This is part of it. So it's certainly pointing to the millennial kingdom when Jesus, Messiah, is going to be in the midst of Judah. And this is why the Jewish people are waiting for that. In the time of Jesus, when he came, just remember that Rome is in control of Israel. The Jewish people are in Israel, but they do not control it. They don't own it. It's a vassal state. They're paying taxes to Rome. So in the time of Jesus, the people of Israel are looking for the Messiah to be in their midst and to get rid of Rome. And when Jesus didn't do that, that's what messed with their heads. They see the Messiah as the one that's going to conquer the surrounding nations, and they are going to be in peace and safety in Israel, and they're going to own it, and the Messiah is going to be the king and in their midst. That's all what they're looking for. And since Jesus didn't do that, they rejected him. And part of it, like I said, is because verses like this: the Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. They're thinking save from the invading nations. That's who they're thinking he's going to save them from. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you by his love. He will exalt over you with loud singing. Just beautiful parts of the verse which talk to the fact that God, the Messiah, is going to just be so glad that they are finally regathered, and he's going to exalt over the Jewish people with gladness, that he's going to come and be their king, and it's all pointing to the fact that he's going to save them from the nations that have been giving them nothing but trouble since the time they were kicked out of the promised land. So it's important to keep things in context with that, and remembering that first Assyria came and kicked the northern kingdom out of the promised land, and that was in 722 BC, and then the southern kingdom kicked out of the promised land in 586 BC, and then they were regathered into the promised land after about 80 years after they were kicked out in 586 BC. But they were allowed to rebuild the temple, allowed to rebuild the wall, but again, they did not own it. It was under the control of Persia at that time. And so, yeah, they were allowed to go back to Israel, but it wasn't theirs. And the promise of the Messiah coming is a promise of Israel belonging, the land of Israel belonging to Israel again, being the promised land for them, where they can dwell in safety, and where the King of Israel is going to dwell in their midst physically on the earth. So again, just a wonderful verse in Zephaniah 3:17, where you can get a glimpse of why Israel wanted so badly for the Messiah to come and what they expected the Messiah to do. Now, just know that Jesus came to the earth, he was dwelling in their midst, and he did save. He set up the situation on the planet that people could be saved from their sin so they could be in the promised land of heaven. That was part one of Jesus' mission. He had to first come and save the world from the sin of the world. And with that, everybody has an opportunity to believe in Jesus and be saved from going to hell. So that was part one. So here you see that part of the verse that says, he will rejoice over you with gladness. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. That's what Jesus did. Not from the invading Rome, not from the conquering Rome, the one that was over Israel at the time, but he saved them from their sin. He saved everyone from their sin. He saves the whole world. It just is up to the Israelites to believe in him, and it's up to you and me to believe in him, and you will be saved. And with that, you go into the spiritual nature of this verse. He will rejoice over you with gladness. He will quiet you with his love. He will exalt over you with loud singing. And that talks to what he's going to do when you're in heaven with him, because you've been saved. So, it's sad that the people of Israel haven't yet seen that Jesus did this. He came to save them. He physically was in their midst. He came to save them from their sin so they could be in heaven. The most important thing. They, in their mind, they think the most important thing is they're in the promised land, owning the promised land of Israel themselves again, and they're thinking that when that happens, he's going to rejoice over them with loud singing and all that, which, not to be really confusing, is going to happen too. After he wipes away the nations and punishes the nations, like I talked about in the beginning, I will utterly sweep away everything from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. After he does that, then he will dwell in the midst of Israel, those who believe, in the millennial kingdom. He's going to be king of them all. So you've got future reference here, and then you've got far future reference. The future reference of Jesus coming, second coming, to destroy the nations and then set up the millennial kingdom where he will dwell in the midst of Israel and all those who believe in him. He'll dwell in Jerusalem, and there the nations are going to come, and everybody's going to believe in Jesus for 1,000 years. And at the end of the 1,000 years, some people drift away, and then blah, blah, blah. I don't want to go too long. So that's part one. That's the future. And then the far future is being saved into heaven and him rejoicing over you in heaven. So all those that believe in Jesus are going to be in the millennial kingdom, whether it's because they made it through the terrible tribulation time, they're going to be there, or they're going to be there in their glorified body because they've been raptured. They'll be in the millennial kingdom. And then everybody is going to be together, everybody who believes in Jesus. After the millennial reign of Christ on earth, everybody who believes in Jesus will be in their glorified bodies in heaven eternally. Woo, that's a lot. I probably confused 90% of you, and I'm sorry about that. But it's good to look at these verses in the Old Testament that predict what's happening in the future and in the far future. And this particular book of the Bible, Zephaniah, if you want to know what's going to happen in the day of the Lord, when Jesus comes to destroy the nations, just read that book and you will get the Cliff Notes version of what's going to happen at the end of days. All right? I'll see you next time. Bye.